in the Office of Federal Programs. I'm also the lead for the One Plan Committee for the EdSteps project. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please mute your microphone so we don't get any background noise during the presentation. We will have time at the end to go through questions, as well as we do have consultants who are monitoring the chat during this presentation. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to add those to the chat. And then, of course, at the end of the presentation, we'll open up for any type of questions you may have or anything that you would want to share at that time. So this presentation today is for those districts who are in cohorts 2 and 3. My hope is that those of you that are in cohort 1 have already gone past this point, since the deadline for plans was on April the 30th for cohort 1 districts. So I do want to thank Rachel Hand and Candace Kirchner. They are administrative assistants in our office, and they are assisting with this presentation today. So we are looking at, for today's presentation, we're going to look at the history of EdSteps, what to expect in the future, how to navigate the planning tool and functions, your steps for preparing the One Plan and how to export from the One Needs Assessment to the One Plan, creating the district plan and your building plans, and then fiscal resources. With all of that, I am ready to move forward with our presentation, and thank you for coming today. So the Ohio Department of Education system of tiered ease plans and supports is known as EdSteps. We're going to provide a very broad overview of what EdSteps is to emphasize some of the primary goals of this project and how it depends on the involvement of everyone. Before we dive into EdSteps, I want to take the opportunity to first acknowledge the great work that was done in our office or the agencies to create the strategic plan, Each Child, Our Future. EdSteps is one of the ways to support this strategic plan. It's going to link to all the core principles within the strategic plan, as well as the 4 learning domains, and help with those 10 priority strategies. With EdSteps, we are identifying areas for improvement and working collaboratively to support our stakeholders in their continuous improvement efforts. We're going to go over some of the areas that EdSteps will target during today's presentation. We are, just as a reminder for you, this is the calendar or the dates for the transition to EdSteps. So everyone's been assigned to a cohort. All the organizations that currently receive funding underneath the consolidated application. If you are in cohort 2, you will be doing a 1-year plan for the FY 21-22 school year. In the middle of next year, in about January of 2022, you will start working on your One Needs Assessment. But at that time, you will be working on developing a 3-year plan that would be effective then from 2022 through June the 30th of 2025. For cohorts 3, you guys won the ticket because you have 2 more years where you're actually just doing a 1-year plan. And then in the January of 2023, you would start working on your One Needs Assessment to develop a 3-year plan that would be effective from 2023 or July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. So this kind of explains a little bit more. LEAs in Cohort 2 will, of course, start beginning on your work next year. On your first year in Cohorts 3, you have 2 years yet. Plans for this year or this year's funding one plans need to be submitted by January the 30th for districts that are in Cohorts 2 and 3. The plans from their previous year cannot be, that you don't have that rollover function. However, you are able to go back in to the previous year's plan, and if there are descriptions or things that you want to copy, you can do a copy paste over into this year's plan in some of the pieces, and we'll talk about that here during the presentation. So I'm quickly going to go over how to navigate through the planning tool and what are the functionalities for the users. The OEDS role requires that you do need to have, OEDS roles and able to have access to the planning tool. If you are in a building, you need to have the principal's role and then data entry planning, CCIP, or or to enable to edit. If you just want to be able to have staff in your role in your building to be able to view the plan, they would need to be able to have data view planning, CCIP, for the building level. For district level permissions, you have your superintendent and your treasurer would have access to be able to go in and edit. But you also then have staff who are in the, that can have data entry planning. So that means staff who may not be the superintendent and treasurer, you can give them access to data entry planning, the CCIP, so that they can work on the CCIP at the district level. Or you can give staff data view planning at the CCIP. Staff that has data entry planning at the district level also has access to building level plans and can do edits there. To get into the CCIP planning tool, you're going to have to go through your Ohio ID portal and log in. You want to put in your username and password. And then you're going to want to go into CCIP and select Launch. It'll open up to the CCIP homepage for you. You're going to want to do a search for your district and get to your district's consolidated application. Then on the left-hand side, you have planning, and there's a flyout window. Once you click on planning, you're going to want to select the planning tool. This is going to take you into the planning tool. There's several things on this page that are, hold on, you're going to want to look at. First, you're going to want to make sure that you change your year from 2021 to 2022. Check to make sure for the one plan, which cohort you're in. It will tell you right below the year. And the plan review submission status will tell you if the plan has been submitted or not, which at this point, I would not think any of the plans would have been submitted. Below that is your differentiated support status. This is going to be important information for you to know as far as which buildings and what are the required items in the One Needs assessment are triggered based on your differentiated support status. And then below that, the link to the district's plan is right there. You would just click on district or agency. However, to get to the different school plans, you're going to have to use your drop-down box to select the school first, and then you're going to want to go into the school's plan. So navigating the one plan or navigating your plan can be rather overwhelming at times. So we do recommend that at the top that you do a collapse all so that it collapses to just your goals. And then you would just click on the plus sign to expand by goals so that you don't get lost within your plan. You can do an expand all and expand the entire plan if you would like, and then scroll down through, but then it's often very difficult then to figure out exactly where you are in the plan. The numbering system that's built into the plan can identify for you which goal, which strategy, and which action step, and today, hopefully I'll be able to show that to you. So for right now, we're looking at this district has three goals within their plan. Within each goal, there are components or pieces. So each goal consists of the goal itself, which consists of the description or the SMART goal, the root cause analysis from the needs assessment, your student measure, and then your DOT implementation measure. You also have attached to that goal whatever fiscal resources you have selected to support the implementation of the strategies and action steps for that goal. Then you have below that, you have your strategies, and notice that, for example, this is goal 2, and you have 2 strategies. Strategy 2.1 is the first strategy, and 2.2 is the second strategy. As you expand a strategy, underneath it, you will see the action steps. And if you look at this action step, you have an action step that's for goal 2, strategy 2, and it's the first action step. So the numbering system, if you get lost, can help you kind of figure out where you are within the goal. But every goal has these within it. Also in the planning tool, there are a couple of items that have interest for you. For example, the plan review status page is not something that this year you will be looking at, but once your cohort comes into play, your cohort year, this is the status page that will show you the review status of your plan from each of the offices that are reviewing your plan. You can print your plan. There is a print function, and if you click on that, it will create a PDF of the plan for you to be able to print. There is a change log, and we often use that change log to see what changes occurred since your last revision within your plan. This you can also go in and see if anyone else has gone into your plan and made changes to it. You can also, there's the view all school plan action steps. This allows you to go in and see or create a report that shows all the action steps that your buildings have. And then finally, the history log. Once you go into your cohort, there is a history log now on the planning tool side as well, and the different offices that are reviewing your plan will use that history log to communicate with you on anything that they see in the plan that they may have questions on, or that they may want to make a comment about, or that you need to make sure that you go in and add. This is what the review status page looks like. You can see that we have over 10 offices that are involved in the reviewing of plans once your cohort year. And then, of course, your plan could, based upon the office's review, meet their criteria. The office could make some recommendations for things to think about or consider for your plan. Or it could have something where it's missing a specific criteria that that office has for your plan that you need to go in and either address through a history log note or go in and actually put an update in your plan for it. Then also, finally, if the office is in the process of reviewing your plan, but it's not completed, they may select that. And then not applicable or plan not reviewed would be if it's not going to be reviewed by that office or it has not been reviewed by that office. So we're going to go ahead and move on to preparing the plan. What do you need to do to really get ready and to prepare for the plan? We want to ensure that you understand the process, what are SMART goals, what are strategies and action steps within the plan before we move on. So in Ed steps, and really with most plans, the one needs assessment is the foundation, and the plan begins with the one needs assessment. So you start with a comprehensive needs assessment. Once you move into your cohort year, you will only do the one needs assessment every 3 years. However, until that time, you will have to do the comprehensive one needs assessment each year until your cohort year comes up. The one needs assessment then will populate and form an outline for your plan. And you will have to do a plan each year until your cohort year. And then finally, the funding application, which is the other side of the CCIP, that will continue to be something that you will do each year for each of the different funds as you receive those allocations. You'll complete those funding applications within the funding side. So let's talk about what is the one plan. We are attempting something very big with the agency. We are trying to consolidate all the required plans that districts are required to provide across the agency into one plan. So we want to have a centralized plan that is in the Ed Steps program. So the one plan, it will encompass all of the comprehensive improvement plans that districts are asked to do by the different offices. The hope is that this is going to help districts align all their improvement efforts in the district, help you clarify what are your priorities over the next 3 years that you're really going to try to address or correct in the district. And then also condense these strategies to that are working to implement, so you don't have as many strategies that you're trying to implement in the district. Really condense it down to what you really actually have the capability and capacity to implement within a 3-year time period. And then attach this work to funding sources so that these do have a funding source in order for them to be implemented. So we're currently in a transition period. Our cohort 1 group is the first group that will write a 3-year plan. We had our pilot groups the year before. They will roll into our cohort 3 group. Then each year there will be another district that will transition to a 3-year plan until finally we have all of our districts are on a 3-year plan cycle. ESCs and DDs are included in that, as well as we are working with the Career Tech office so that those districts that have Career Tech plans or a Career Tech district, they will also be moving into this process. And of course, it will this transition is going to be occurring over the next 3 years. We do have currently an RFA out, and we are currently in the process of selecting a vendor who will actually be helping us to start build the plane that we have been trying to fly here in the last couple of years. So again, I want to kind of really highlight the timeline between what your timeline is now and then also what your timeline would be once your cohort year. So the One Needs Assessment is released typically in November and between November and December. It gives you time to go in and look at what are the required questions you have, what are maybe some other areas that even though they may not be required, because of data and information you have of the district or a community or something that has been an initiative in the district, you want to make sure that is included in your plan. So you're going to want to address those items in the needs assessment. Then you can begin working on your One Needs Assessment then with your district and your building teams in January. Right now, the deadline for districts that are in their cohort is to have their building and their district plans completed by March 31st. We did do an extension this year for those cohort 1 districts due to the pandemic, but currently it is a March 30th annual due date for these plans. Then during April through June, the multiple offices will review the plans, and then the funding application opens. June 30th is again still the deadline for all plans and funding applications to be due and done. So those of you in cohorts 2 and 3, this year your deadline is June 30th for your plans as well as for your funding applications. So what are the elements of a comprehensive improvement plan, a complete improvement plan? Well, you're going to include SMART goals. We recommend 3 to 5 SMART goals. You're going to want to have for each of your SMART goal strategies that you're going to implement that are evidence-based to help you reach your goals. And then for each of those strategies, you're going to want to have action steps that are really going to break down what are the things that you're going to do to implement that strategy. Along with that, you need to be able to monitor your progress towards your goal through your student and your adult measures. And then finally, a key to all of this is making sure that you have the leadership at all levels within the organization to support the implementation of the improvement plan. So this does not only includes your administrative team, but it also includes your teacher leaders, your DLTs, your BLTs, your TBTs as well, and their leadership throughout this process. So as you've noticed, these used to be what we would call our 8 buckets, things that typically strategies and action steps fall under. These are topics or improvement areas within the One Needs Assessment that eventually become areas that you would write your strategies under over into the plan. So there are currently 8. These could expand during the year, during the process that we go through, but these are the 8 that we've had now for the last couple of years. And those of you that have been doing this will recognize these 8 topics, areas for improvements. And then, of course, this entire process really is looking at systemically looking at root cause, your root cause analysis. So what is the underlying causes or challenges that the district faces that is represented through the symptom or the problem that you're seeing? Because often even the root cause analysis, it may not be a direct linkage even, but getting underneath and saying what is really causing this issue to come to where it is, or these symptoms or the results that we're getting. All right. So one other thing that I do want to share with you is the action step bank. For those of you that did the training last year, you may recall that we did recommend that you went in and cleaned up your action step bank, because the action step bank is a nice tool for the district to be able to provide to the buildings in order for them to be able to pull action steps from the district's plan over to the buildings. It's also an opportunity too that it may not be an action step from the district plan, but the district can also provide additional action steps for their buildings. So I want to just talk a little bit about the action step bank that's in the One Plan or the planning tool. So if you remember when you went to the flyout window for planning, you saw planning tool, but underneath that is what's called the action step bank. The action step bank has a list of action steps that have been added to it. And it, depending upon how long it's been since your district has been able to go in and edit this, it really depends on how current it is. So if you go in there and you see a lot of action steps within there, I do recommend that you go in and remove any action steps that are really no longer relevant or current for the district. You may even want to, since you are writing a complete new plan this year, you may want to delete all items and just add the items from the plan this year to the action step bank for the buildings to have access to it. You know, I recommend that you just go in and review this. So there are two ways you can add to the action step bank, and one of those is to actually create the action step here in the bank itself. However, I will caution you that the district does not have access to select from the action step bank. So if it's an action step that you're going to be putting at the district level, you may want to just wait and add it to the action step bank from the district's plan instead of doing it here. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it twice anyway. However, if you have an action step that's not going to be in the district's plan and you want it to be available for the buildings, this is where you would add that action step. The second item on this page is no longer operative. It's been turned off. So all buildings now have access to create action steps. So they can choose to select action steps from the action step bank that the district provides, or they can create their own action steps. The trash can there on the page allows you to delete the action steps, and the arrows here on this page allows you to reorder them in whatever order you want them to be in. So to write an action step in the action step bank, you're simply going to provide its title and then a description. And of course, for action steps, the description should be clear enough that it clearly explains what the district or the building is doing. So it should tell us who is doing what, how they are doing it, when they are doing it, etc. The more information you put in there, the less questions we'll probably have in the long run for you. Another way, again, is on the action step when you create the action step within the plan. And if you see here at the bottom, this is within the plan itself, and I'll go over and show this to you again. There's a little checkbox. So as you're writing your district plan, you can add those action steps to the action step bank for buildings to use by simply clicking on that box, and it would automatically populate that area, that section or that piece. So those of you that are have already started are going to see that the one needs assessment export to the planning tool is very different this year than what it has been. Each year we've made updates, and this year the updates have really gone to the needs source. The needs assessment now is actually exporting directly into the plan itself. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that process and what you're going to see. So again, when you're doing your comprehensive needs assessment and you're going through the required questions and then looking at what might be recommended or other areas that might be of importance for the district, you need to have the end in mind. So as you're going through and you're selecting, well, is this item a priority or not? And then when you get to the priority tab, selecting, well, is this going to be a priority that we're going to be working in our plan on for the next year or 2 years or 3 years? Then really thinking about which of these priorities are really going to have a greatest impact in making it conditions or improving our student achievement within the building or the district. So sometimes when you select or you decide which ones to send, you're also able to capture some of those other needs that perhaps weren't priorities or weren't priorities to the needs to the extent that you'd be able to address over the next couple of years. However, it would have a ripple effect on making improvements in those areas as well. Eventually, as you go through and you really select your highest priorities that you're going to work on, and you think about what do we have the capability and the capacity to really do and accomplish within the time frame that we have, eventually you're going to be able to address all of them. It's just not going to be able, you're not going to be able to do it all in 1, 2, or 3 years. It's going to take over time a consistent process that you utilize in your improvement efforts. So the one needs assessment or the plan actually really begins in the one needs assessment. And it begins on the priority needs tab. There are really several things as you're working on your plan that you need to make sure that you do. First, you're going to select out of all of your priority needs that you have identified and have sent over to this page, which ones are going to be the priority needs that you're going to address over the lifetime of this plan. The next thing that you really want to do is looking at your root cause analysis, saying, okay, what other buckets or improvement areas besides the priority improvement area that this need falls under will we need to address in order to really implement the strategies we need to implement to effectively address this root cause analysis. So for example, in here underneath early warning systems, we know that for college and career readiness, that is one of our improvement areas. It falls underneath that. So we're going to do something about our college and career readiness systems or in that area. But however, this district has also identified that they know in order to really completely address their early warning systems, these other items would need to also be addressed. Their community and family engagement, they need to really look at how is community and family engagement going to be key or a part of this. They're looking at curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Perhaps for this district, they need to really look like how do they embed within their processes for assessments an early warning system to identify students who are at risk. And then finally, leadership, administration, and governance. It could be policies and practices that are within the district that they may want to address that's leading to this issue of students not graduating and needing an early warning system. Or it could be that they need leadership across the district to really support an early warning system that's systemically in place across the district. And you can see then for the second one, which was educator equity, they chose other buckets also that they felt like they would need to address in order to address this root cause analysis. And the same with their English language arts here. Those are things that you're going to want to do also, because this page is the page that really creates the outline now for your plan once it transfers over into the one plan. So once you have selected those, then for example, the district that we just looked at, they actually have identified within their one needs assessment 3 goals. And for example, their first goal, they've actually identified 4 key areas that they're going to address in order to meet their root cause analysis. They have college career readiness, community family engagement, their leadership goal, and their curriculum and instruction, not leadership goal, but leadership strategy and curriculum and instruction and assessment. So this is now going to become their outline then in the one plan or in the planning tool. And what it's done, it has taken that English language arts goal, for example, and that goal now was exported, or that priority needs title was exported into the SMART goals title. The root cause analysis that was there on that page is now underneath the SMART goal, so that it's embedded within each of the goals, your analysis of your need for that goal. And then each of those improvement areas or buckets that were selected before have now been transferred over or copied over into the title for the community family for the strategy. So they now have an outline for this goal that includes the one goal and then 4 strategies along with their embedded root cause analysis. So in order to be able to send your needs assessment to the plan, you're going to need to change your completion status there on the priority need tab to send to planning tool, but you also need to make sure that you select the save icon, which is the little burgundy icon there that looks like I don't know, a cell phone, but you could be a disk or a save. But that little icon is really the save icon in the system. In most places, it automatically saves. However, if you do see this little icon, it's indicated. It's an indicative of the fact that you need to save that, or it's not going to happen. So there is a process that we do recommend for districts prior to them submitting their needs assessment to the plan. For instance, we do recommend that you go and you look at the report in the needs assessment so that you can look to see what your different buildings have selected as their priority needs and their strategies, and also be able to evaluate and look at what they have identified as their root cause analysis. Looking at that report is going to help you finalize your district's needs assessment so that you can see, well, do we have a full picture of what's going on in all of our buildings? Because sometimes what the district may believe is the underlying cause. Perhaps the buildings have some insights that the district would not have that you may want to include in your district plan. It's also going to give you an opportunity then to look to see at, are there common priority needs across in all of our buildings, and common areas for support in our buildings that are needed from the district. In order to run the One Needs Assessment report, you need to go to the top of the One Needs Assessment report icon. And once you click on, you click on that to get to the reports. And you're going to notice that there are 4 report tabs. There's an overall tab, which really just lets you know the overall status of each of the needs assessments from the district as well as the buildings. And of course, also what areas they've selected. Tab number 3 and 4 are informational tabs as well, as far as identifying improvement areas and the question groups that each of the buildings answered. And then also number 4 will give you question details so that you can go in and look at the questions. The tab that you're going to want to you'll utilize the most is the second tab, which allows you to print or look at reports underneath root cause analysis and priority needs. This is a sample of what one of the reports looks like, and this is underneath the improvement areas and question groups so that you can see underneath the required questions how many of them have not started in this instance, and as well as for the questions by the question groups, what has been completed and not completed. I recommend that you go in and just start looking at the different reports and seeing what you can learn from looking at those different reports about your buildings plans, as well as your root cause analysis across the district. So here is our recommendation for the One Needs Assessment to the plan progression. We recommend that the district requires the buildings to complete their One Needs assessments first. And then the district go in and review the building reports as part of their analysis for their needs assessment, as well as then their determination on the district's priority needs. Then the district goes in and completes the One Needs assessment. You may find after you've gone and looked at the root cause analysis and what the buildings have selected as priority needs, that there might be some areas in the One Needs assessment you may want to ask questions or answer those questions, even though they're not required areas in the One Needs assessment. Once you complete your One Needs assessment, then you submit it over to the planning tool. And that's going to open the planning tool for the buildings. So the buildings cannot submit their needs assessment to the planning tool until the district has actually completed their One Needs assessment and submitted it over to the planning tool. At that point, then the buildings can submit their needs assessment to the planning tool, and they can begin working on their plans as well as the district. All right, so creating the district plan. Again, when you look at that, what can we do at the district level that can have a ripple effect across the district? So at this point, you've completed your One Needs assessment, you've conducted your root cause analysis on your priority needs. You've determined now your focus priority needs for the next year's plans, and you've identified those areas in which you need to address in order to address your root cause analysis and impact that priority need. So you're going to build your plan now in the one plan based on the outline that you developed on that priority needs tab in your one needs assessment. You're going to continue to ask, what is it that we need? And in the process, improve overall learning conditions within our district and provide the supports that our buildings need in order to actually make improvements within the building. So think about it. It's like throwing a rock into the water. Where do we want to throw our rock in order that we can have a ripple effect that's not only a positive ripple effect across the district, but it has a positive ripple effect for our buildings and for students' learning and well-being. So just again, I want to remind you that the priority need then on the priority need tab creates your SMART goal. The primary improvement area becomes strategy number 1, title or the topic for strategy number 1 in your plan. And the additional improvement areas that you selected become the additional strategies for the plan. So we recommend no more than 3 to 5 goals. You can have 2 goals, especially for those of you that are just writing a one-year plan. And if you're a very small school or if you're a charter school, you may actually have 1 goal that you're going to work on for the next year. We also recommend for strategies no more than 3 to 5. So now think about what is it that you need to address in order to address your root cause analysis, and then let that be your guide for the number of strategies that you need. So as you can see, this is the sample again. One thing that I do want to highlight, when you get into the planning tool now, there's a couple of things you're not going to see. One of them is you're not going to see a link to a needs assessment. That's because your needs assessment is now embedded within each of the goals. So you have your root cause analysis, and we've already embedded now what you've determined is your priority need. And the topic areas or the improvement areas that you need to address in order to impact that priority need and meet and address those items in your root cause analysis. Other pieces that you're not going to see in the one plan this year is the component relationships. As you go into your one plan, you're not going to see that district improvement component or the equity plan components there in the district plan. And your buildings are not going to see those tabs for the school improvement component or the school-wide components. Those items have all been embedded into the one needs assessment, and you are addressing those items there. We do have a document, it's in the document library, as well as with the resource guide, that actually shows you where what those components are and where they are in the Ed Steps or the one needs assessment and one plan process. I think I've covered this pretty well, I hope. You've got your goal, came over from the needs assessment, and you have now your strategies that have come over from the needs assessment. Notice you have a link that says create evidence-based strategy. You will not be able to create strategies or goals within the plan. You need to go back to that priority tab, and that's where you're going to create the strategies for your goal. So as you're finishing your one needs assessment, you want to do that now, or you can go back in later, select additional strategies, and send it again to the one plan, and it'll populate there. So when you go in and you create the goal, the title and the root cause analysis will be grayed out. Those are not editable because those are exported from the one needs assessment. You are going to go in and you'll complete your description for your SMART goal. Then you'll also provide your student measure for that goal, or what are you going to do to monitor progress of your students towards that goal, as well as how are you going to monitor adopt implementation of the strategies for that goal. A reminder that a SMART goal is sustainable, it's measurable, it's attainable and achievable, realistic and reliable, and it's timely. So here's an example of a student measure would be the classroom behavior discipline referrals will decrease by 5%, and absenteeism as measured on our attendance records will decrease by 2% each year from 2020 to 2023. An adopt implementation measure for this would be 100% of our teachers will use quality district adopted formative reading comprehensive assessments to inform their instruction. So for you to be able to complete your strategies, the title will be there, which really is the topic for the strategy. In your description, then you're going to describe that what you're doing underneath that topic area or that strategy. You want to explain who is doing what, how they're doing it, when and where, and all of that. Another addition to this year's strategies is that you can also identify your student subgroups or your populations that may be a focus for this strategy. And you would do that underneath the strategy in the section below. So your strategies are come from the improvement areas in your needs assessment. And again, they are topics, they're subjects for the strategies is what's going to be in the title area. And really the meat of the strategy is going to be what you put in the description. And of course, we recommend no more than 3 to 5 strategies per goal. You can't have less, but we don't recommend 3 to 5, depending on the size of your district and of course the length of your plan as well. Strategies should be evidence-based, although we do realize not all strategies will have the level of evidence in order for them to reach the requirements for some of the evidence-based levels. So as for your end, if you have strategies that really aren't evidence-based, think about what are we going to do to evaluate whether or not this is effective. Part of the new Ed Steps process as well will be that evaluation is have we effectively implemented our plan, and is what we're doing effective, or do we need to change what we're doing in order to make better improvements? And then finally in your plan, you're going to add your action steps. So this is a piece where you will have to add your own title for your action steps. You will add a description and be sure that the descriptions clearly tell us what you're doing. And then finally, if you, at the district level, if you want to add this to the action step bank for your buildings, you want to be sure you check that little box there at the bottom. So action steps, especially at the district level, we've noticed that a lot of districts have not been using action steps, but they're very important because they really spell out the steps that you're going to take in order to implement that strategy. So it's first, this is what we're going to do, then we're going to do this, and then finally we're going to do this. 3 to 5 action steps. You can have more depending on how detailed you want to become in your action steps. They should be very intentional. We should give us enough information again so that we know what you're going to do. And then finally, once you've completed the plan, you will do submit plan for review. However, you don't want to do this until your buildings have completed their plans too. An additional item this year in the planning tool is that districts will confirm that they have reviewed their building plans prior to the district submitting the plan. That is because the building plans will not mirror the district's plan as they have in the past. The building plans will mirror what their One Needs Assessment priority tab is in the One Needs Assessment. So that's why it's so important that when you look at you look at the process that you're using, you review and you work with your buildings as they're building their plans. And that you understand exactly what their plans include and how they align and the district supports those plans. Okay, so there are within the document library, if you go to the CCIP, and then there is actually a link that's just for FY22 planning tool resources. There's several resources, more than what's even shown here, that you can go and look at and use. One of those that I do recommend, that especially as you're doing the One Needs Assessment, is that you go to the One Needs Assessment structure, because it gives you an outline of all the improvement areas and what are the different priority needs under those. Especially if you have other areas that perhaps you might want to make sure that you address in your needs assessment and your plan, it's going to give you an idea of where to look. And then also we do have the school labels flowchart, and I'll get into that here a little bit with the building plan so that you know which buildings in your district are required to have a plan, as well as the district. So copying from previous year's plan. You do have some copy functions. Mostly it's going to be at your action step level where you can go into the previous year's plan and do a copy. So you're going to copy from instead of copy to. So you would navigate to the prior year and click expand all. And then you can manually copy, such as with a copy paste, especially if you have 2 windows or 2 monitors. That works very well in order to be able to do that. Another way that you can copy is at the action step bank. If you go back to the prior year's action step, you're going to select this year's in the drop down box, and then you would select whatever from what goal, and then the strategy and what action step you want to copy over into the following year or to this year's. You cannot, the strategies will not copy over because the strategies come from the needs assessment. However, the action steps do have this copying from your prior year plan that you could do. And then finally, the print link on the plan overview page is available for you to be able to print the complete plan once you have it done. All right, I want to go into creating the building plan, and we're doing pretty good to an hour. And we're almost getting close to the end. So which buildings have to do a plan? We do have, and I showed there was that school labels flow chart that's in the document library that will tell you whether or not buildings within your district are required to have a needs assessment or a plan. So any building in your district that has a school label on their building plan page would be required to have a plan unless they're independent completely. So if they are focused, if they are priority, if they have a watch designation, then they're required to have a needs assessment and a plan. Any building within your district that is a school-wide building needs to have a needs assessment and a plan. That's a requirement for school-wide buildings because Title I is a building-wide improvement program then. So you have to have a needs assessment and a plan to be able to implement a building-wide improvement. So as buildings start to develop their plans, they're going to, again, when they get to the priority needs tab in the one needs assessment, they need to think about at the building level and where we stand right now based on all the data that we've looked at. What can we do? What can we do that's going to have the greatest impact across our building for our students? And could I possibly even have a ripple effect on other needs that we've discussed or within the process of developing our one needs assessment? So again, on that building, on the one needs assessment priority needs tab, they're going to want to select not only which of the priority needs they want to identify, but they also need to select based on their root cause analysis. What are the other improvement areas that we need to address in order to address the underlying cause of this concern, of this priority need? The building plans flows very similar to then the way the district plan flows. The building's priority needs goes into the building's goal title. And the improvement areas would be the primary improvement area in which the priority need falls under, as well as the additional improvement areas that the building has selected they need to address would fall then into the strategy title section in the one plan. The building plans support then the overall goal for the district plan. And we'll talk to you a little bit about how that might work. So why do we have buildings with separate goals now and strategies? For years, that has not been the option. Because the underlying fact is that the building's results is what leads to the district's results. And we need to see buildings make progress in order to impact the results at the district. For example, for many of you, you may have buildings that are independent, but your district is a moderate DF. So the buildings may look very well on their own, but there is something that's going on at the buildings that's really is reflected as a symptom up at the district level, even though it's not seen at the building level. So the buildings are the ones who really need to address what are those issues that are occurring, and the district needs to be able to provide the resources and the support and the overall structure enable for them to be able to meet those needs and to make improvements that's going to impact the overall district. So the needs assessment building reports are very important for you to be able to use as you build the district's plan. So you want to make sure that the building completes their one needs assessment to inform you on what they're doing. And then also that you're reviewing that report and you're reviewing those building needs assessments prior to you completing your one needs assessment. So it aligns with what your buildings are telling you are their needs and their underlying root causes. So again, the building plan actually begins in the one needs assessment on the priority need tab, and your districts need to submit your one needs assessment to the CCIP before buildings are able to work in the planning tool on their plans, because it's the district that actually opens up the planning tool then in order for you to go in and work on it. So if you have a building that receives an error such as this, it's because the district has not completed their one needs assessment and sent it to the CCIP yet in order for them to be able to begin working on their plans. The buildings need to wait for the district to complete that process. Now districts do have the option. You could go ahead and submit your one needs assessment. Simply, if you want to be able to open the plan for buildings to work on it, you can do that in the planning tool, and then send your one needs assessment over again later. That's an option that you have. Buildings will complete the same process then as the district. Their goal title and their root cause analysis has come over from the one needs assessment. It'll be grayed out, but they're going to need to write building SMART goals and building student measures and adopt implementation measures that they're going to use in order to monitor their progress towards meeting that goal. One item that is there in the district goal, in the building goal, SMART goal section, is an additional item in which they identify which district goal their goal supports. So, for example, if the district earlier had the English language arts goal, however, you may have an elementary building whose goal is reading literacy, they may select then English language arts here is the district goal that their literacy goal is supporting. Once they do that, it's going to populate within the goal statement of the building, the district goal that this goal falls under. So, for example, in this one, this goal here for instruction falls under the district's English language arts goal. Buildings are also going to need to add strategies. The strategy title, again, it will already be populated as the topic for the strategy. The real meat of the strategy is going to become what they put into the description for that strategy. And you can have several things that you're doing underneath that one topic to really address the root cause analysis. So it's very important that they do provide enough descriptions so that we clearly know what they're doing in order to address their root cause analysis in that area. And then finally, buildings are also able to identify their student subgroups that would be a focus for them in the building for that particular strategy. And it could be, it's not necessarily going to be the same student subgroup for every strategy, depending on what their needs are. And then at the action step level, as I've told you before, you do have the copy function. And if you see there is a copy. So you're going to go back to the previous year's plan and you can select copy. And then once you open that up, it's going to, this says strategy, but what you really want is going to be action step. You're going to select the goal. It'll also have you select the strategy. I don't know about that one. Oops, now I see why. Another option that the buildings have is to actually select their strategies from the action step bank. So when they add action steps, they also, not only could they add just the title and the description for the action step, but they also have something that the districts don't have, and it's called recommended action steps. And there's a drop down, and it's a list of all the action steps the building, the district has added to the bank that they can actually select from. Once they select it, it's going to populate the title for the action step, but it'll also populate what the district has as the description. However, the buildings can edit or add to that description more building specific information. Here we go. The copy function for action steps would be that you would simply select copy. Then you would go back, you would select the year in which you want to copy from what building or the district you want to copy from what goal and from what strategy, and then you would select copy and it would pull it over then into the copy, into the action step underneath the goal and strategy for which you selected. And then once the buildings have completed their plans, the district then is ready to submit the plan by clicking on that they have read and confirmed that the building plans are approved by the district, and then submit their plans. The last step within creating your plan at the district level is your fiscal resources, and that is underneath your goal. So why do we do fiscal resources now when the funding applications don't come out in June? Because you need to think about what resources are you going to use to support this comprehensive improvement plan? So once you go through your goals, you want to think about looking at my strategies and my action steps. Which of these funds can help me support these goals? And about how much do I think it would cost? This is only estimates. It's nothing that we would come in later and say, oh, you said it was going to be 50,000, but you spent 90,000 or more than that, or you only spent 10. This is really to help you identify now what funds are going to be used and how you would most likely are going to be using those funds then when the grant application becomes available. The assigning of the fiscal resource is only completed at the district level, and it's done underneath the SMART goal. And again, you need to make sure that the fiscal resources that you select, the activity that you're using it for meets the intent and purpose of that grant, and these are only estimations. So to create a fiscal resource, you're simply going to select the Create Fiscal Resource link. Then you're going to select which grant that you want to identify, and you can do this more than once. So you can select multiple grants and have multiple resources attached to the goal. And then in the enter amount boxes below for 2022, you're going to put an estimated amount. So it's only going to be dollar amounts, no cents. So again, we're getting back to what we're trying to do is fund the plan. So you want to use estimates to help develop your budgets. Your budgets need to align to what your plan is. So when you do your funding applications, you do need to align those budgets to the plan. And all the goals and strategies should have a fund assigned. If you end up having a goal which you're not planning on using any of your federal funds or any of your grant funds to implement, you may want to add a history log note stating that you plan on using your general fund or what funds you plan on using, because more than likely your federal programs consultant is going to end up asking you, how do you plan on funding this goal? Once you have all of that done, you are really ready to submit your plan and your funding and start working on your funding applications. So now we have time for questions, and I'm going to open it up. We have about 15 minutes left for us to be able to do questions. Morning. So, Edward, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes. I wanted to ask, are the building plans required to be done in the legacy CCIP before you can submit your plan for a substantially approved date? Or would the district plan just need to be done?
So if you do not have your building plans done, we will not approve your application.
Okay.
Your building plans are required to be completed in order for us to approve the application itself.
Okay, so we got our one plan done, our needs assessments are done. But now we have to go in and do the work in the legacy program. And I did want to save the building principals from doing that if possible, but you're saying that has to go back in and they're going to have to type that stuff in because your rollover feature is not going to work.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they have until June 30th to get their plans done.
Yeah. Okay.
So
now, if their building's not required to do it, if their building's not required to do it, then they don't have to.
That's correct. They are not required to have a plan unless on that school label's flowchart it indicates that they are required to have one.
Okay.
Good questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Barb. Do we have any other questions from anyone about the process or any clarification based on the descriptions that I've given so far?
Diane, thanks for all your visuals and everything. And it appears that your presentation has changed since January. But anyway, I like what you're doing today. The other thing I appreciate too, you provided a planning tool technical update that was dated April 30th. And that may be helpful too for districts.
Thank you. For some of you, especially if it's your first time doing this, I do recommend that as you're doing your plan and you've worked with it, that you set up a time to meet with your federal programs consultants, because they can actually go through and give you some, one-on-one assistance. It's not uncommon for us to set up a conference call prior to you submitting your plan and checking it to make sure that it has everything you need, you're required to have. So If you haven't done so in the past, reach out to your federal programs consultants and see if you can, meet with them prior to submitting your plan so that they can look at it, see if they have any questions in advance of you submitting, and you'd be able to address those prior. If you're not sure who your federal programs consultant is, if you go into your funding application this year and you click on the address book that's on the left-hand side in that little tower where the planning tool was, you can see your ODE federal programs consultant is listed there. And if you click on their name, it'll open up and give you their email and their telephone number.
Diane, this is Jim.
Hi, Jim.
How are you today? Edward Weber, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has his hand up. So I don't know if he has a question.
So I don't know, Edward, do you have any more questions, or was it just you hadn't put your hand down yet?
I guess I didn't put my hand down yet. I will put it down now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right,
sorry. I just want to make
That's
sure.
okay. Thanks, Jim.
I wouldn't mind if we went into my plan there and just confirmed if my one elementary building has to do a plan or not. It is school-wide Title I, but it is independent.
Okay, so let me go where I would look. So let me show you where I would look if I were you. And I'm going to share my screen again. And then Edward, if you wouldn't mind, exactly, could you tell me what your district is?
Do you want the IRN or do you want the name?
Just the name.
Wellington Exempted Village School District.
Okay. So I'm going to go into the My Ohio ID, and I'm going to log in.
Okay.
And my login may
your
look
process,
a little bit different.
yeah, looks different than ours. Yeah.
Yes, I get some special access, And I'm going to go to my workspace and then launch. CCIP. And because I have everybody, over 1,000 of you, I have to do a search. So there are two places actually where you can see your labels. The first place is on the building eligibility page in the Title I funding application.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll across, you can see your label there.
Yes.
And then also in the planning tool, as you go to each building, and your question was the elementary, am I correct?
Yes.
So your elementary building is independent. However, my question is going to be, is it Title I school-wide?
Yes, it is.
So if I go to Title I school, if I go to the consolidated and I look at that building eligibility page, and I see that it's Title I school-wide,
yes,
it is going to be required then to do a plan because of the Title I school-wide status.
Okay.
Your middle school is required to do a plan because it's focused and it's also Title I school-wide.
Yes.
And then your high school is required to do a plan because of its gifted watch designation.
Yeah, I see
that. So
yes,
all three of your buildings will have to do a plan.
But I also got a notice here from either in history log or something that I didn't do the high school feeder right, and that actually they would qualify for school-wide, if I wanted to do that. So they said if I do a revision, that could go in. They sent that to me here not too long ago. So
That's correct, because you would base your feeder pattern is based on your elementary numbers, not your
Yeah.
secondary.
yeah, I see that. So so that's something we could look at. The problem is it doesn't really matter if I do school-wide or targeted based on, it doesn't change the funding at all. It just, it might change your PPA, but the dollar amounts you're going to give us is the same. So you'd be asking me to provide services to more people with the same amount of funds, and it actually would perhaps deplete or dilute our assistance to some. I don't know, but.
So the difference is here, and Edward, you've gotten into it's a good question, is not really about, the fund is going to stay the same. You're correct. Right. Your funding is based not on your free and reduced lunch numbers or anything like that. Your funding is based on your census data. So
right.
that stays the same regardless. However, we're talking about two different programs, and that's where the district really makes that decision on what kind of program would best meet the needs within this building. So a school-wide program means that you're going to use those funds across the building to make for improvement efforts. And it's a targeted area within that building that you're looking at improving. Whereas in a targeted assistance program, you're actually going to use those funds for a targeted group of students who have met the multi-criteria selection process. So those are the two different programs. If you're under a targeted assistance, you have to actually identify which students would receive those funds. And those funds can only be spent towards those students and the teachers that serve those students. In a school-wide program, you would not identify particular students because all children within that building are eligible to receive the supports of Title I, and all the teachers are eligible to receive those supports.
So you don't have
where
to
you identify your program underneath your plan.
Yeah. So we wouldn't have to do the time and effort sheets.
And I would recommend too, at this point of the year, it really doesn't make sense for you to go school-wide now. I mean, you're almost done with the year. But I would say, thinking about next year, what do you want to do and what do you think would be the best for that building in that circumstance? To continue remain targeted assistance or to go to a school-wide model?
Now, do you have a Title I consultant guru that we could kick some ideas around with about these things we just mentioned?
Certainly. Amy Hill is our Title I lead.
Okay.
I don't know if Amy is on this chat or not, but if you email amy.hill at education.ohio.gov, she can assist you, as well as your federal programs consultant.
Okay.
And who do you have for your federal programs consultant right now?
I think
Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff is an old hand at this.
Okay.
And I don't mean Jeff is old. I just mean that Jeff has a lot of experience in this area, and he would also be very helpful for you.
Well, that's great then. So
you've got two people you can reach out to that can assist you with that decision. Okay.
I'm just I did a lot of training with the principals on the one needs, but now I've got to get them into the legacy system and do some new stuff in there with them. So
certainly, and you could always reach out and see if you can get one of the consultants that could actually meet with your principals and do some of the navigating and stuff with them.
Okay.
Well, that's an option that you have, especially with teams, that we can do a call and we can work just with your principals especially getting them trained up on how to navigate and how to do this and answer their questions, because it's hard to really, until they get into it, you don't know what they don't know, and you don't know what they're going to ask.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Have any other questions? Well, we have ran out of time, or we're at the end of the time. I will hang out for a few more minutes just in case anyone has any more questions. And I do appreciate everyone's participation and the support again from the Office of Federal Programs consultants that they provide to our districts, and they provide to me in the office every day. We've got a great group of people that are helping us. And if you haven't done so yet, please reach out to your consultants. They're there for you.